Sup, you beautiful bastards? Hope you're having a fantastic Friday. Welcome back to the Friday Show. For those of you that are new here, we put out a daily video Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, talking about news, world events, and then Friday, it's all about the conversation. I go through the past week of videos and stories to see what you're commenting, and then I reply back. It's great to have a news show to try and be informed, but a big part of this really is the conversation. But before we jump into that, I want to knock out a story that people have been requesting I cover since Tuesday. I'm just knocking it out here. I didn't include it in this week's Philip DeFranco shows because it's not really news, it's YouTube drama. So actually, on that note, if you want to skip this part, you can just jump here in the timeline. But that requested thing was a reaction to the iDubbbz content cop on RiceGum. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll link to his video down below. But to oversimplify, it's a takedown piece by Ian, iDubbbz TV. And here's the thing, I am biased here. I'm a big fan of iDubbbz. When he releases a content cop, that's like a YouTube holiday for me. I stop what I'm doing and I watch it. Like, the most negative thing I could say about the guy is he made me question people using certain words in certain contexts, but I understand his point of view and his argument. And here's the thing, I will say without a doubt, no one does takedown pieces better than Ian. This video here, like his other content cops in the past, they're very well researched. Additionally, he's a smart boy. He knows how people are going to react to certain things. So he either preemptively cuts them off at the pass so they can't use that, or he allows them to react and respond a certain way because he knows they're going to overextend. We've seen that in the past with some of his targets. I mean, we're talking about a guy that because he knew that someone was going to make fun of his hairline in a response video, shaved his head. And not like a clean shave, like a fucked up shave. And it's pretty damn hard to argue against any and all of the points he made in that RiceGum video. Some of them were stories that we covered in the past, like him destroying another YouTuber's property. We covered that because it's an actual crime. There's the outrage of him being dismissive and disrespectful to a rape victim. To all the people saying, oh, Phil, talk about iDubbbz ending RiceGum's career. No. What iDubbbz does is he maims careers. He does a lot of damage. We're seeing that with RiceGum. Went from getting between 8,000 to around 16,000 new subscribers a day. But then the content cop video releases, RiceGum loses tens of thousands of subscribers, but then you slowly see it swing back to normal. But soon enough, Rice will be back in the positive. What happens next is completely dependent on how RiceGum responds. All I would say is if I could give some advice to RiceGum is don't handle this situation like you're doing something against Jake Paul. Ian is a pro, whereas Jake Paul, in certain states, if you were really mean to him, that could be considered a hate crime. But that's that. Let's jump into the Monday show. Monday, we talked about the Vegas shooting. Just B wrote, all major news channels, over 50 killed and more than 500 injured, an act of terror in Las Vegas. We will be right back after this. Insert drug commercials, other ads. Makes me wonder how much the people at news agencies actually care, or are they sitting in a room thinking in their heads, man, we are going to make so much money and our ratings are going to go through the roof. Not throwing every news journalist in one basket, but some executives, anchors, and news producers are probably thinking about how much money they're making. So that's a pretty interesting point. Obviously, I'm in a different basket. I'm not 24/7 news. I have the ability, like I did on Monday, to move my sponsors, my advertisements, to turn off the YouTube ads. So I think for news stations, they're in a different basket. Obviously, I also saw a lot of people saying, hey, Wall Street Journal, you did all those articles about advertisements being next to violent content all over YouTube, that this changes the game. Other outlets doing other hit pieces on YouTube. But you, in your more controlled environment of Wall Street Journal, still put up all your ads around the violent content, showcasing the videos with advertisements surrounding it. And so I guess I want to pass the question off to you. Is it wrong that websites keep their ads on those pages, or no, this is news? News should be funded despite some of these outlets or the people that work at them being hypocrites. They're not profiting off of a terror attack, they are profiting because they bring the news to people. I mean, if the standard practice became you don't have advertisements when you're talking about something that is too violent, would that take away the incentive for news agencies to cover it? I don't know. I'm personally not going to crucify them for this because it's something that I'm still trying to think about. I base my decision on how I personally felt. I'm not saying that's the right way, so yeah, just let me know what you think. Ordinary Area Road, I think it's really upsetting that I'm somewhat desensitized to mass shootings just because of how many have occurred in my short lifetime. My logical brain processes the tragedy, but you have to understand, high school seniors were born the same year as Columbine, in elementary school during Virginia Tech, in middle school during Sandy Hook, and in high school during Las Vegas. And I think the sad thing is, I understand where you're coming from. I remember covering Virginia Tech. And please understand, I'm not making this about me. I'm mentioning this because maybe there are other people that feel this, but each time something happens, I do feel a little bit of myself chip away. The shootings you talked about here, the Pulse nightclub, the Nice truck attack, the 2015 Paris attack, they just chip and chip and chip away, and then next thing you know, you're just looking at a video and your only response is again? And you still hurt for the victims and the fact that it happened, but the shock is not there anymore. And just thinking that and saying that out loud, it makes me realize how sad that is. John Summers wrote, when a terrorist attacks us, we immediately start thinking of ways to stop terrorists. When mass shootings occur, now isn't the time to talk about solutions. With no political dog in this fight, why can't we talk about gun control? And John, I will say that in the past around shootings, I will say, this is just within the first 24 hours, this is not the time to politicize this. But after seeing this happen over and over again, I think that it's worth a conversation, and we shouldn't villainize the fact that we should want to talk about it. And I also think this is a unique situation and a great place to start talking about it. There are a few unique things about this story. One, from most everything I've seen, it seems that most, if not all, of the weapons he had were completely legal. And two, the shooting was done in such a way that the prospect of a good guy with a gun couldn't really stop the situation as it was happening. The guy was shooting from a 32nd floor into what was essentially for him a killing field. It's not the same kind of situation where you have the bad guy going into a school or a movie theater where a person with a handgun could stop them. And personally, I think wherever you land on the issue, we shouldn't villainize having a conversation about it. But then let's jump into the Tuesday show. Tuesday, we talked about updates around the Vegas shooting, some people promoting fake news. We had the CBS firing, the alleged rape by cops in New York, and the Catalonian referendum. And actually, before jumping into the comments, I did want to note something, an update. On the Tuesday show, we talked about a lot of people promoting fake news. One of the people I mentioned was Tana Mojo. Tana had previously posted a tweet where she said Donald Trump said that all the people being killed in Vegas was a miracle. It was a complete butchering of reality.
But I do have to say, how quickly the police department was able to get in was really very much of a miracle. They've done an amazing job.
I want to point out something she did after I uploaded the Tuesday show. She tweeted, "My bad for promoting fake news. I literally hate Trump and should have watched further. Shout out at Philly D for helping me be less stupid." I will say, minus all the overcompensating LOLs, that is exactly how you should respond to being proven wrong. Acknowledge it, own it, try and learn from it. Will she? Hopefully. It's not guaranteed, but it's a great first step. On the Catalonian referendum, Laura Laneza wrote, "Thank you for covering the situation in Catalonia so accurately, Phil. As a citizen in Catalonia, we want more people around the world to see what's happening, to maybe get some interference so we can have a peaceful conclusion to this referendum. Because right now, most of us are worried it will end in a second civil war." HandyTune wrote, "Illegitimate or not, the crackdown on the independence vote in Catalonia amounts to police told by the government to attack people they disagree with. This is textbook fascism. The Spanish government has no leg to stand on with this issue." Rumpa Lumpa wrote, "Whether you agree with the referendum or not, the reaction of the Spanish government was incomprehensibly stupid. How can you answer people writing something on a piece of paper with massive police influx and violence and then call it unconstitutional? They violated their own citizens, crushed their right on free speech, and used massive force against them." So one, I agree with most people that Catalonia should be able to do this, at the very least be allowed to vote. The fact that Spain's government sent in all those national police, you saw people being beaten in the streets, uncalled for, unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. But I do want to mention why Spain's government thinks that they are in the right here. It all comes down to Spain's democratic constitution of 1978. This gave Catalonia wide autonomy, but also affirmed, quote, "the indissoluble unity of the Spanish nation." And so Spain's government is saying, because this is in the Constitution, this is illegal. So essentially their argument is, hey, your fathers and your grandfathers, they made this political decision. So sorry if it's the will of the people, you are ours. And also it's important to understand that a lot of anger that we're seeing today in Catalonia stems from 2006. In 2006, Catalonia passed something called the Statute of Autonomy of Catalonia. And to oversimplify, it just defines the rights and obligations of citizens of Catalonia. This ended up going to the Constitutional Court of Spain. It took them 4 years. And after those 4 years, they decided to strike down 14 of the articles, and they also dictated the interpretation of 27 more. And that pissed off a ton of Catalonians. Over 1 million people reportedly took to the streets in Barcelona. And one of their prominent chants were, "We are a nation, we decide." And so things like that are where you're getting people that they want to be separate. They feel like they're supposed to have been granted autonomy, but they're not really in control of their lives. Well, I understand why there are people that are on the side of Spain's government. How they handled it is horrible. In my opinion, all they're doing is escalating the situation and breeding more animosity. On the CBS firing, Zype wrote, "Stop getting people fired. It's okay to notify CBS, but don't demand them to fire an employee. They should have simply stated that the views of the employee don't represent the view of the company and go on with their lives. This stupid circle of outrage, getting people fired and then that person is issuing a fake apology, doesn't get us anywhere, and it's not very conducive for free speech." And on the opposite end, we had Budamala writing, "Yes, that woman should have been fired because she is a public face of CBS and this is bad PR for them. It's not the same as the guy who was fired from Google because he wasn't a public figure." And Mattman P wrote, "Regarding CBS firing, if we allow temporary insanity as defense for murder, we should consider it for online comments." That is a very interesting thought that I had not considered, I'll be honest. honest? Well, one, I would say you can plead insanity. That doesn't mean you just get off scot-free. Secondly, on the note of someone being a public face for your company, anyone can really be the public face for your company. If on their profile, under their picture, they have where they work just prominently displayed, that person by the general public is going to be seen as a representative of your company. That said, as far as the firing, I'm personally split. If one of my people said something like this, it really wouldn't even be about public perception. I just wouldn't want to work with that person. It's an incredibly disgusting mindset, and to the first comment saying freedom of speech, you're talking about the government coming down on you, arresting you. It's not freedom from people's responses. People get to still respond. You can be fired. And as far as going after people's employers, that is the new wave. Anytime anything happens now, they go after the employer. If it's an online personality, they go after the sponsors. I think as more people get used to the internet, people start building tougher skin, words start mattering less. People start taking aim at what is at the core of a person's ability to live, and that is their money. I'm not saying it's right, but this is the new normal. And then let's talk about the Wednesday show. Wednesday, we talked about the woman who faked her own kidnapping, Rex Tillerson and Donald Trump in Moron Gate, more updates around the Las Vegas shooting. On the Rex Tillerson story, Johnny Swifty wrote, "It is petty stuff. It's not proper news for that level of media. It's bullshit gossip magazine level news. The news at that level is there for the public to be informed about important issues. It's important for the public to know that their Secretary of State still and always has wanted to serve. It's not important to know whether or not he called Trump a moron. But the media knows if they can get a headline saying Sec of State calls President a moron, that will generate a ton of clicks because a lot more people have their attention set on reality TV type drama. The media knows that's not a relevant question to ask in the grand scheme of things, but ask it anyways because that petty shit sells." And Johnny, I disagree with that. If your understanding of the story is person A said mean thing about person B, oh shoot. And so in that very narrow viewpoint, you could be like, this is petty bullshit. But what we're talking about here is a report that says a Secretary of State, after an important meeting, called his boss, the person ultimately making the decisions, a moron. Not to just one person, but in a situation open enough that there can be several sources reporting this. And that's a big deal because you want your Secretary of State and President on the same page. And as we've seen from Trump tweets and Rex Tillerson interviews, they do not seem to be on the same page on some big things. To me, that story and claim isn't about the word moron. This is about a potential alleged clash at the highest levels of government. And so that's why I personally see as how Rex Tillerson answered those questions the other day as a dodge. He specifically denied the part that he had to be talked into staying in his position, but he opted against giving a specific definitive answer in regards to if he said the president was a moron. But Johnny, that is just where I land, and we can have a difference of opinion here. And then let's talk Thursday show. Thursday we had the Cam Newton sexism controversy, Mark Salling being a sex offender, the Netflix price increase, and the US voting no on the UN death penalty resolution. On the Cam Newton story, Super Atheist wrote, "It is funny to hear a woman talk about routes. By the way, what are routes? Sports." Thank you, I needed a laugh today. Luna Malfoy wrote, "I lost a lot of respect for Cam with that statement. I've watched football my entire life. I know routes, stats of players. I can see when a team lines up the type of play they are trying to run. It's not uncommon to talk to a woman who knows about a sport she watches. You think we're turning it on for the padded bodies and commercials? No, we're watching it because we want to and we enjoy the sport." And the Padded wrote, "I think the 45% female fan base is a somewhat skewed statistic. As a person who works in uptown Charlotte where the Panther Stadium is, on Sundays I get a shit ton of football fans coming to my shop, and I can assure you that even though 45% of the audience is women, I see and talk to a true majority of the women who are just brought by their boyfriends and or just there for the spectacle of watching sports in a public place." So there are a few things to hit on. The first is the 45% number was kind of just an aside. One of the reasons why I said that may not be your personal life experience is because in my circle, I really only know two women that watch football. One is my wife, and it's really less about watching football and more watching my reaction as I pay attention to my fantasy league. And then the fantastic Nikki Limo, who's actually in my fantasy league, although I would argue she actually has a deeper knowledge of football than myself probably. But the reason that's an aside, as I mentioned in the video, is this isn't about all women. This is about a journalist in the sports field who has been following the Panthers for a year. This is a reporter, not an on-camera personality. If she didn't know the ins and outs, she wouldn't be good at her job. Also, to the people I saw saying, "Cam Newton apologized, let's just move past this." At the time of your comment, at the time of this video, he had not. The closest thing to that is that he said he should have made the critique about all reporters, not singled her out as a woman, but that doesn't make sense. That's like, it's funny hearing you say that. Then maybe you could see like, oh, okay, I see how like you and all reporters, how that might be interchangeable. That's not what happened. He acted like he saw a monkey using tools. But after my video went up, after he lost his sponsorship, Cam Newton did finally apologize on his Twitter. He released this video where he said these key points.
"Careful thought. I understand that my word choice was extremely degrading and disrespectful to women. And to be honest, that was not my intentions. And if you are a person who took offense to what I said, I sincerely apologize to you. Don't be like me, be better than me.
Although with all of that said, I will say I'm not on the fuck Cam Newton train. Maybe it's because the NFL has kind of lowered the bar for me, but if an ignorant comment is the worst we're getting from him right now, he's a saint. But that said, my favorite comment directed towards Cam Newton around this situation was, quote, "How's Cam Newton gonna act like she doesn't know what a post route is when he's the one with the 8th worst quarterback rating in the league? Oh, why you gotta do Cam like that? He's on an upswing. Didn't you see him last week? He threw as many touchdowns against New England as interceptions against New Orleans." But whatever, we're past this. And that's actually where I'm gonna end today's show. I do want to thank all of you beautiful bastards for another fantastic week. Thanks for watching, being a part of this, commenting, sharing, all the good stuff. Also, a huge shout out to all you beautiful bastards that are subscribed over at DeFrancoElite.com. Thank you for funding what we're doing now and what we're trying to build. But with that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you next time.